One Piece, guys. One Piece is so peak. You need to be watching One Piece. It's like, oh, great. I hadn't heard of that one. No one has told me to watch One Piece before. Wow, what a novel recommendation. Now I feel like I have to like cut that out. We got to do just like an actual intro now.
Well, you're the one to decide you're gonna do a transition.
Well, I didn't really
joke.
think about like the joke or anything. I was just kind of like, oh, but hello and welcome to the Weeb Crew. I'm your host, Psionic. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mumi.
I'm speechless, honestly.
Mumi, how many orgasms do you have every day?
On a good day.
On a good day? I wake up, I go to the shower, I'm like, oh, let's just fucking get this shit done already.
I'm having a real good day. I might have a half a one.
Yeah, so what are we supposed to talk about this episode? Because like we're recording this like Thursday night, and I feel like we were supposed to record this like a day or two ago.
I don't know. I was having fun. We were watching Momentary Lily.
Lily.
The beach episode, the greatest beach episode ever made.
Not really a beach episode. It's more of
it's like a pool episode. Yeah.
It's an important distinction to make, all right?
Okay, sure. Yeah. The pool episode.
Yeah.
Having fun, gooning.
Having fun, yeah.
Now we're
in
here.
The Discord call, having a goon sesh, as we do. That's what it's a good podcast. The podcast where the hosts goon together, stay together.
That is the worst tagline I've ever heard in my life.
Do you think Joe Rogan like has like orgasmed in front of like Jamie or whoever?
Probably not.
Do you think he's? I mean, there's a non-zero chance he has came on the podcast.
Why?
What?
What are we talking about?
I don't know. Well, what were we? Oh yeah, we were supposed to talk about like anime. So you say that Frieren is not a Sakuga fest?
Oh my! That's what we're fucking talking about?
Yeah. That's what we're talking about today, ladies and gentlemen. Movie says Frieren has dog shit animation.
Oh my god!
People loved your Demon Slayer take last time, so let's keep the ball rolling.
All I said was I pointed out you called Frieren a Sakuga fest, and I was like, that's a funny thing to say. I don't know if I would ever describe Frieren as a Sakuga. Like, someone's like, hey, what's Frieren about? I don't know if I'd ever be like, oh, it's a Sakuga fest, bro.
No, it absolutely is. What the fuck are you talking about? So, do you realize how much I saw people on Twitter just gooning over that show's animation?
Yeah, but they do that for every fucking show that like is popular. I don't know if that means anything.
They're not doing it for Sakamoto Days.
Well, that's not a popular show. That's the popular show to shit on, I guess.
No. It's like the most popular show this season.
I get, but like, I don't know. That's like that's an acceptable. I feel like that's an acceptable show for people to like shit on visually.
We talked about this last episode, but I did want to like talk about this more because when we last talked about Sakamoto Days last week, we didn't get to episode, what was it, like 5 or 6, whatever?
Yeah, 5, I think.
Something like that. The episode where they're like fighting and then everyone like was like, there was a big debate on Twitter between people who were saying like the fight looked like ass and then people who were saying that the fight looks fine. And I'm more on the side that was like, no, I think the fight looks fine. I think this is kind of like what we were talking about with like Frieren and stuff, is that Frieren has animation that is like easily and immediately appreciable. Like you can like clip like something out of Frieren and it's just kind of like, oh, this is obviously good animation. Look at how nice this looks. Whereas it's something like Sakamoto Days or like, what was I was like extending this to even like older anime as well. To appreciate some of the stuff, like some of the more limited animation that you see in anime, you kind of have to think about it a little bit more. You can't just show a clip to someone with no commentary or anything like that, and they'll just be like, "Oh yeah, this is great."
I think it's a difference in what you appreciate, because like when someone points out like the character animation of like fucking whatever the fuck the red haired dude's name is in Frieren, like changing or whatever.
Stark, yeah.
And he's like hyper detailed movement and it's almost like rotoscoped. Like that is an appreciation of animation in like the fluidity set, like the Sakuga sense, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas what we're talking about with Sakamoto Days is more direction, I would say. Like it's more utilizing limited animation in an economic way. So it's not necessarily the same appreciate like on a technical level. Like you're not gonna clip that and be like, look how great this is, like how fluid the movement is, how great it is, like drawn like by frame.
Yeah.
But you can still appreciate the direction that is kind of utilized to make it interesting and kind of skirt around the fact that it's not moving as much.
And good, in at least like good example. Like I still wouldn't say that like Sakamoto Days is the best example of that. I think it's an interesting example, but
I think it's a good example of like competency in a way. I don't know. It's not like the greatest, but it's showing like, yeah, this is like
there is so much worse.
Yeah, like it's showing like. Because that's what I was kind of saying when we were talking about. I was like, it's kind of hard for you to prop up the virtues of what Sakamoto Days is doing,
right?
Because like it's well done in like a like you, it's competent, right? But it's not
also
like
a question of like, is that what the show should be doing? Should the show have like this be like very interestingly like stylized, but have very limited animation, or should it be something that has just, maybe it's not super stylized, but it has really, really strong action animation. And I feel like people, and it makes sense given the kind of like show Sakamoto Days is people want the latter. People want just like the really like flashy, bombastic.
Well, I think that's what people
stuff
associate with what is like good animation.
Right.
So like that is what they're looking for. And they're not even necessarily wrong.
Well, it is good animation, but it's like it's easy. Like the other example I gave was like you look at a movie like Only Yesterday for like the subtle like just regular character animation stuff of just a character doing something very mundane. A lot of animators will talk about stuff like that, and they talk about it as like being more difficult to pull it off in a like believable, realistic way than like big flashy laser fights and stuff But it's at the same time, it's also then when you watch it, it's not necessarily something that you would just immediately appreciate and go, yes, Kamisakuga. You know what I mean?
Like people post stuff from like Only Yesterday on Sakuga. I feel like people can appreciate because it is.
Well, there's a difference between like Sakuga people as well and like your average like shonen
Twitter
anime
person
viewer. Yeah. Like that like when it comes to like the most casual audience possible, which is ultimately like the audience that Sakamoto Days is made for. It's not like an avant art house piece like Sunny Boy or anything like that.
No.
Then I think it does make sense for it to be like produced in a way that is very like crowd pleasing, and what is crowd pleasing is giant laser fights from like Fate Stay Night or Demon Slayer or whatever.
I guess the argument would be that it is like an action series, and it does put a lot of emphasis on its action set pieces. Mm-hmm. And so, given the nature of it, I could see it easily being like we compared to Spy Family last time.
Yeah.
Being like that, and how Spy Family has a lot of these slow moments that are very economical. Like the moments of like Anya reading people's minds, she's just sitting there. You're not thinking about it because it's like funny. She's reading someone's mind. She has a funny reaction in her head. But just when like you mute the screen, it is just like a still image of her doing that. But then when it does its action, gosh.
Oh my
then when
God,
it does that was a bad voice crack.
Jesus Christ.
Then when it does its action, it is like very fluid, very detailed. Like I think of like the Carnival episode where they
where it's like Yor and Lloyd fighting.
Yeah, there's like a lot of detail put into that fight. There's like real moves used.
And especially because a lot of the combat in Sakamoto Days is like hand-to-hand combat. People do want something, that they want to get that same sort of like energy they get out of like a martial arts movie, for example. Right. They want that same sort of approach to the action choreography, and that's something that isn't necessarily achievable that well through just strict limited animation. Like you look at something like Jujutsu Kaisen does it pretty well from what I've seen of that. There's that what was that show like Outcast season 3 or something where they got like some animators from Naruto off that on that project, and there's like
Andre
insane...
3000.
Yes, of course, yeah, Andre 3000, which I think they might be bringing back. But yeah, people want that sort of approach when it comes, especially when it comes to hand-to-hand action combat in anime like Sakamoto Days.
And I think that, like, I understand when people make that criticism. That's what they're saying, right?
Right.
Like, they definitely, especially with Sakamoto Days. because Sakamoto Days is not bad by any means.
No,
it's not great. I understand the complaints.
Well,
but
I mean,
they're also very overstated.
Well, what was the one tweet that I think I responded to on Twitter where it's like, okay, this person has no idea what they're talking about. Oh, God damn. Oh, why are we arguing in the Patreon channel? I got to scroll all the way up to fucking find this. God damn it. Where the hell? Yeah, here we go. People think slop like this is fine is the reason animation studios throw anything at fans and profit. And it's like, okay, you just have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, no.
There's no way to sugarcoat that.
That's approaching the anime industry as if it were like the game industry
or like Hollywood, yeah,
or Hollywood, something like that. Yeah, it's like it does not work. Anime has been built on this sort of thing, and the only way they're going to advance like in a way that's past the limited animation is if like they're like extorting workers or exploiting people even more,
right?
Or like a Mappa or something, or B, there's like a complete fundamental change to the entire system, which is, I would say it's highly unlikely it will ever happen. It's highly unlikely it would happen in our lifetime in like a short period of time. For
right. Well, I think I've often said like the only way you're gonna like really see something like that is if there is like just another like global recession or something like that, and the anime industry takes a massive hit, and then it can rebuild itself. But
even like the fucking bubble economy they had in the 90s didn't fucking fix that shit. This is from the 1960s, right?
Yeah.
Or 1950s even with Astro Boy. Like as long as there have been TV anime, this has been the status quo.
This is how you make television animation, right?
Yeah. Like there are definitely studios that are kind of working to like fix that. Like KyoAni was a great example. Gohan's another good one. But they are the exceptions to the rule. They are not the norm.
Right. Yeah. And it's something that we've talked about before on the podcast, where it also depends on like, why are you watching anime? What are you wanting to get out of anime? You know, people like us who, you know, just fucking watch anything and everything that we can. We're more amenable to a lot of stuff, whereas, you know, someone who is just watching anime very casually and is only really interested in the absolute best that anime has to offer, you know, and they're like, you know, they're content with having only watched like a few dozen like anime at most. They're obviously not going to like be approaching it from a similar framework, and they're going to be more, they're going to have higher standards in order for them to be satisfied.
I understand that perspective. Like I
sure.
I don't want to say I appreciate it, but you know, I can, because like I have a similar one. Like it's not necessarily the same as theirs.
With literally all other media that isn't anime.
Well, no, like even with anime, like right, I like the stuff that I like the most. I think is some of the better stuff in the medium. The problem is the way that we have a difference in like how we engage with it is they're not engaging with it on like that deep of a level, in the sense of they're not going to engross themselves in as much to like find that stuff, right?
Yeah,
they're just going to take what is the recommendation of other people.
They want to watch stuff where it's like an assured 10 out of 10, whereas like you and I, we're content with like watching something that we can give like a 5 or 6, 7, you know?
Yeah, it's like they're watching basically like the Shawshank Redemptions, fucking Pulp Fiction, like
they're
the things that
reading like Vagabond.
Yeah, they're getting the stuff filtered to them.
Yeah,
that's like, okay, this is a safe bet,
right?
Where I, you know, speaking for myself at least, like I've experienced enough where it's like I've seen shows that people said were safe bets I hated, I've seen shows that people shit on and said were terrible that I thought were really good.
Right.
And I've just realized like you just have to watch shit for yourself. This isn't like a this isn't like oh well if you like, you know, you might like big titties, and so you might like this big titty show, and it's like that might be the case too. But like
that's one example you could give.
There's one example, but this is more of like how you engage with it. Like, what is it that you have to know your taste in a way where it's like, what do you want out of your media? What is it that you engage with while you're watching something, and what is it that you take out of it?
Yeah. And to a certain extent, I think there also needs to be, you know, people like us who are in the trenches sifting through we're like we're the vanguard. I think Trixie made a video talking about this one. We're like the vanguard party looking for like whatever is like worth watching or whatever. But obviously what's worth watching for us is like, we're watching how many shows again this season?
Well, most people, 20.
Yeah, most people aren't doing that. Most people are watching maybe 1, 2, 3 at most, and it's like, based on that, you know, what would I recommend to them? It'd probably be like Metalist, Sakamoto Days, and like Oji-san Villainous, really.
Yeah, it's you,
and that's
as
fine.
Somebody who doesn't watch everything for themselves, you have to realize what people are going to recommend to you is going to be very limited. Like, there are like quote unquote safe recommendations, right? Like Metalist is one.
Yeah, I feel like Metalist is something that's pretty accessible.
Yeah, but like that might not even be necessarily something that you like. Like, there are people that are watching 10 shows this season with us that don't have Metalist anywhere near their top 5.
No, yeah,
even though that seems like such an easy like selection.
Like to us, it's like, holy shit, this is the anime of the year material.
Yeah, it's great, but like that.
Go watch Metalist, by the way. God damn it.
This is this is a Metalist podcast.
We are metalheads here.
The meddlers. But yeah, like you have to realize, like, when people are like, if someone comes to me as like for a general recommendation, right? Like, oh, what should I watch? I try to get a gauge of where they are, and then it's usually like, oh, maybe you'll like fucking Unlimited Blade Works or fucking Hunter x Hunter or something, like something very. I don't generally recommend like the like a Naruto.
You're not hitting them with Matirika or anything like that.
Oh no! Like, I'm not gonna unless like they're just really into fucking art house films.
That is also kind of the thing. Is like, how well do I know this person? What do I know about this person? What do I think they would like? You know, what are they coming to anime for? There's so many times I've seen like movie people who are like really into like movies and stuff, and they'll go on Twitter and they're like, give me some like recommendations, and like their favorites are like fucking Come and See or Solaris, you know, like this, like, you know, foreign cinema, very critically acclaimed type stuff. And then the motherfuckers in the replies will be like, dude, you gotta watch Demon Slayer, it's so peak, dude. And it's like, no, you are doing this person such a disservice. Sit the fuck down. No, you're not allowed in this conversation. Go watch at least 100 anime, then come back here. Don't do this fucking bullshit.
But that's the point of like cautioning people when it's like, hey, you have to realize where recommendations are coming from, because the stuff that's like recommended quote unquote for everybody is not going to have necessarily like specific niche appeals. I mean, it can, but like that's not why they're recommending it to you, and that's not necessarily why it's always like highly recommended. It's just because a lot of people
really
watch
into like music and like rock music and stuff. It's like, all right, am I going to recommend them Bleach, or am I going to recommend them Beck? You know?
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder what. Oh, Bleach, of course. You know, One Piece, guys. One Piece is so peak. You need to be watching One Piece. It's like, oh, great. I hadn't fucking heard of that one. No one has fucking told me to watch One Piece before. Wow, what a novel recommendation.
God damn it. This is why, like, I've always thought like reviews.
Yeah.
The only utility I really have found with it is if you find somebody that you really like and you can get a gauge of their specific taste. Because if you're just doing general recommended reviews, you don't know who the fuck this, like, any fucking show. Just think any show. You go on the fucking Mal page and then someone's like fucking Geki doll, right?
Yeah.
This is the greatest animation I've ever seen in my life. How many anime have you seen? I don't know.
What does that mean? Well, it's like, I mean, this is just kind of like an attitude I have towards like reviews in general, where like I'm smart enough to know what I like and be able to like, you know, figure out if I should like check something out for myself. I don't need to know what fucking score IGN gave a video game for me to like, you know, to determine if I want to buy it or anything. I don't need like Critical Drinker to say that a movie is good or bad as like a determinant for whether I'm going to watch. Like really, like if anything, like the biggest determinants that for me in terms of like the media that I consume outside of anime, where I'm not necessarily as familiar with stuff, is like, what are my friends recommending to me? What are they talking about? What are they into right now? That matters to me way more than like, dude, did you hear? Dude, YMS gave this movie like a 9 out of 10. Dude, it's supposed to be really good. It's like, oh,
no fucking way.
Well, it's cool he liked it, but I don't know. It doesn't really seem like a me thing. So
Arcana gave this a certified frosty, guys.
You
gotta watch it right now.
You said, do you understand how few tens Anthony Fantano has given in his reviews? Dude,
I mean, that definitely will give you like some like intrigue. You're like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
Oh. Yeah, well, especially like yeah, if it's like yeah, if I hear like oh, well, it's like a 10 out of 10 or like something like that, I'm like, all right, my ears are but it's also relative to like, well, how rare are those? I don't fucking care that IGN
who they are
a 10 when it's
like Anthony Fantano giving something a 10 is more interesting than like some random fuck on Twitter you never heard of before.
someone who was given like hundreds and hundreds of things like 10 out of 10. It's like, okay, well, this is kind of
you don't even know. You just see some fucking post that's like, oh my god, this fucking show is a 10 out of 10. It's so peak. You're like, who are you?
Well, that's what have I told you about like my scoring rule when I look at someone else's scores?
No.
What I do is I look at their scores, but I don't just look at their scores. I look at their stats. And what I do is I look at their average score. And then anything above one standard deviation, it's like, okay, that's something that, you know, those are like the things that this person would probably really highly recommend and like say to check out. And you go one standard deviation below, and it's like, okay, that's the stuff they hate. That's the stuff they're going to tell me to stay the fuck away from. That's the rule that I have developed for myself. And I feel like it actually works pretty well, honestly. I look at like my list, and like it's like my average is like around a 6, and my standard deviation is like a 1.7 or something like that. So like anything that I give like an 8 or above, that's stuff that I would like really highly recommend. Which, yeah, I would say that's the case.
I mean, mine means like a 5.4.
Yeah. What's your standard deviation though? See, there's the rub. You gotta. These are the stats that my anime list won't give you, ladies and gentlemen. This is why you got to be using AniList. If you're not using AniList in 2025, what the fuck are you doing with your life, honestly? So your standard deviation is like a 1.5, and your mean is like a 1.4. So anything that you give like above a 7, basically, or even like you give like something a 7 or above a 7, it's like, yeah, that's a clear signifier. Obviously, a Mumi 8, guys, is worth a lot. All right, trust me. Yeah, all right. Mumi 8s are like high value anime that you should check out.
What? So how does that work for like lower scores? So that would be like a 4, right?
So let's see here. Subtract 1. So that's 4. It was like a 4 or 3. Like anything below a 4. So like a 3.
There are shows I would recommend that I've given a 4 to people.
This is true. Well, yeah, it's also like just like a matter of like that's like you gauging like. Trying to look at it a little bit more objectively, to put it one way, where it's like you're trying to look at the show from the perspective of another person, essentially. You know, have you seen that Adam Sandler movie, The Cobbler? Kind of like that. Do you know what the plot of The Cobbler is? The plot of The Cobbler movie is, so Adam Sandler is a cobbler. You know what a cobbler is?
Yeah, the shoemaker.
Yeah, a guy who like repairs shoes and stuff. But what he can do is he can put on someone else's shoes and become them. And, you know, he takes a walk in their shoes. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I remember this movie now.
Yeah. So you do that, but with anime.
How did I forget this movie existed? How did you remember this existed?
How did I remember? You're telling me you forgot about the critically acclaimed Adam Sandler classic from, like, what, like 2013? 2017?
Is it? No. There's no fucking way that was 2013.
Hold on.
That has to be like mid 2000s.
The Cobbler.
2014. Jesus.
Fuck you. I was right. Wait. But it's saying 2015. Wait. Oh wait, there are 2 movies called The Cobbler. Okay, wait. No. It premiered in 2014 at TIFF, and then got a wide release in like theaters in 2015. So, yeah.
This is a long. What we? Yeah.
Right. Well, we were talking about recommending anime.
So
yeah, you're like Adam Sandler in The Cobbler.
That's so stupid.
This is just a new segment on this podcast, like the buffet thing last time, where it's like I just say something insane, you're like, I need to process that for a second.
Yeah, you just kind of have to like feel people out, and so like this idea of like prestige watching, right?
Yeah,
I can only watch the best shows ever created.
Right, I want to watch the Breaking Bad, the Game of Thrones of anime, or like whatever the hell. It's like, yeah, right. I'm probably not going to recommend this person like the Salaryman Isekai.
But how many of these people even like do that? You know, like Pluto. How many people watched fucking Pluto last year?
Oh, well, yeah, that's like a broader cultural issue, which is like people are fucking terrible at like actually finding things for themselves. They will complain from the fucking moment the sun comes over the horizon to the instant the sun sets that media sucks, everything is bad, Hollywood is putting out trash, and then they will do literally nothing to find any media just on their own. They will always just fucking rely on whatever goddamn algorithm is just putting shit in front of them. And it's like, no, you want to find stuff, you want to find interesting things to watch, you got to put in just a little bit of legwork and use fucking Google, you lazy fucking slobs.
I blame the schools.
Honestly, yeah, that's fair. I blame the government.
This is a boomer moment, but the school is supposed to teach you to like find information.
Yeah, develop. Yeah, we need we need to start just teaching kids how to fucking develop their own taste in English class or some shit.
You got to go a little deeper than Googling good movie.
You gotta stop. I mean, to an extent, it's also like, you know, platforms like YouTube are actively hostile to trying to find new stuff, as you and I are very familiar with, which is why we had, the whole fucking AniTuber list. Netflix is very similar as well, where it's really hard to like find stuff on Netflix. Like if I want to just see all of the anime that Netflix has, it's really hard to do that actually. Like I go on Netflix, I go to the genres thing, go to anime. It's not showing me all the anime it has. It's showing me the anime that it thinks that I want to watch. And it's like, no, just show me everything. Show me the catalog, goddammit. I just want to see everything that you have.
I don't want your fucking algorithm.
What is your
Give
inventory?
me everything. I will figure it out.
I'm smart enough on my own, okay? I have an IQ of at least 90. I think I can handle this myself.
I can confirm my IQ is at least double digits.
I can count at least up to like 10 using my fingers. Okay.
I can breathe on my own.
I know how to blink.
I don't drown in my soup, all right? I can find my own anime.
But yeah, I mean that is like kind of like the thing though. Yeah, people are just like they're just content with like, oh, what's on the front page of Netflix? Yep, we'll just watch that or whatever. Which is unfortunate. Because
I could be guilty of that with YouTube at least, like
a little bit, but it's like, especially when it comes to anime, people talk about like anime sucks or whatever, and it's like are you doing any like anime is in a really unique position because we have sites like My Anime List, like AniList that are really good in pretty accessible databases where you can just go and you can see what is airing right now. You can find stuff through these platforms and no one uses them like that. And it's really goddamn annoying.
There's not even like an equivalent for this for anything else, right? Like, I mean, if you want to play like
Letterboxd.
No. So if you want to find like games, if you're like, oh, I really liked fucking BioShock. Let's see every game that Ken Levine has worked on.
Yeah.
you just
Oh
Google
yeah, like
Ken
his
Levine. There's not like
have like that information.
I mean, it's got those people on there, but it doesn't like you can't just click on them and see all the stuff that they've worked on.
Yeah,
like the database is not that extensive.
And anime and video games do not release by season like anime are. So it's like I want to see like what are like the new games out right now, and well, there's so many new games coming out every fucking day that it's like it's also just like impossible to like really sift through to an extent.
Yeah.
But that's obviously not the problem. That's not a problem that anime has.
No. I get the prestige thing for like games because it's like there's a high investment. It's a lot of time. You're spending money to fucking watch it or to consume it.
Play it, and games are like hours and hours and hours long.
Yeah, but like anime, it's like 3 or 4 hours. Like if you watch the entire 12 episodes,
and you can turn it off if you have a Crunchyroll subscription. You just have access to most anime, or you can pirate it. It's really not that hard. Honestly.
Free anime stream on Google.
no one has any right to complain about like, oh, there's just no good anime for me to watch. Yes, there is. Shut the fuck up. Even
with seasons, like this season, people are like, oh, this fucking season's garbage. I'm like, really? Like,
really?
There's so much random shit.
I was talking to someone about that at another server. They're like, oh yeah, this season kind of sucks. I'm like, you literally just shot down every recommendation I gave you. What the fuck? You're not watching Metalist. You're not watching Soryo Utility. What the fuck are you doing?
People just don't even like give like Zenshu.
Fucking
I feel
ostriches just like burying their heads in the goddamn sand.
I feel like Zenshu is a good like people just don't even give it a shot. Like I get like, oh, I don't like the setting or whatever. It's like, well, they're cooking with it. They're doing something specific with it,
right?
Like.
Well, or Puniru, people like just look at it and go, nah, that's for babies.
Well, at least like they watched some of Zenshu. They're just like, oh, this fucking setting sucks.
Oh yeah,
Puniru, they didn't even
try.
Just
look at the poster for Puniru. Yeah, no one gave that thing a shot except for us, seemingly.
There's just so much like different shit going. Like we were going through yesterday. Aquarium Myth of Emotions only has like 3,000 people in my anime list.
Well, listen, Mumi, Mecha is dead. And what I mean by that is when Mecha is dead, it doesn't mean there are no more Mecha anime coming out. It means no one is watching Mecha anime anymore. Because Mecha is dead. Because there are no anime coming out, even though there are, but no one's watching them. And people who just are incapable of fucking looking at my anime list and doing basic goddamn research just don't know it exists.
What's crazy is Metalist
reviews saying like original anime didn't exist before Evangelion. What the fuck?
Yeah, he said didn't really exist.
Didn't really. Oh Jesus!
So it's like
Christ.
It's like
how
saying
does
like
that happen?
Look, listen, it didn't really exist means like it existed, but it wasn't a big.
I haven't seen any of those.
Fucking Metalist only has like 34,000 people on my anime list. It's like what the
really
fuck?
Popular manga too. It's like well received.
I was actually shocked. I'm like, how is it so low?
Yeah.
Like I thought this was like kind of a hyped manga. I get like not everyone's gonna like pay attention to that shit.
Sure, but it's like, what the hell happened? What's going on, guys? Everyone's watching Sakamoto Days and then complaining about it, and then not watching anything else because they're fucking losers.
They're watching all the sequels.
Oh yeah, there are a ton of sequels coming out right now. Like ReZero, everyone was fawning over that because they got to see where like the redheaded girl takes off her clothes.
Got Solo Leveling.
Oh, is
Dr. Stone.
Yeah, I think Hanako-kun, Jibako Hanako-kun is airing. It has like a season 2 airing right now that I just need to watch. Yeah, so it's story. I mean, so yeah, when we're talking about the people who were complaining about Sakamoto Days, our point is that they are normies, and you should ignore what normies have to say.
Fucking normies. Don't listen to normies. Listen to me.
Fucking tourists, all right? Listen to us. We're the experts, all right? And we say that Sakamoto Days, all right. It looks fine.
It's whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be cool if it like
honestly,
if it had, like, yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't even recommend anybody listen to us. It's like if you know what our general taste is,
mine's
pretty easy to figure out. It's the most boring taste in anime.
This is true.
You know what it is.
Yeah.
But if you've kind of figured that out and you kind of have a good gauge, and it's like, yeah, listen if you want.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've gotten to a point where like I just watch something,
mm-hmm.
and I go and I like, oh, this is really good. I'm gonna give it an 8, and then people
mm-hmm.
are like, oh, maybe gave this an 8. It's like, what?
Yeah, what are you telling me? You don't get an ego trip out of that? And you're like, yes, I'm.
Well, that's what it's not necessarily like an ego trip.
That's like what it feels like to be like a My Anime List reviewer.
I don't get an ego. Like it's not like it's like, oh, the people.
You don't have your head buried up your own ass.
No, it's more like, oh yeah, that's what I like wanted. Like that's why I wanted my scores to elicit, right? Like I wanted. It's not like I'm like. It's just like the way I've utilized the scoring system. I've wanted there to like hold some weight, right? In like when I give something a higher score. Yeah. So like if someone is like saying like, oh, that's interesting that they gave this a really high score. That's like what I wanted. It's like, yeah, that's
Well, it's like when I was saying that like look back might be favorite material. I think that like, I think that also probably sets some expectations for you knowing that.
It's like, one of these fucking things again.
Ooh.
One of these fucking psionic shows.
Oh, one of those. I mean, that is funny. Like looking at our like the differences in our like just overall like anime of the year, especially for last year, where it's like you have like a lot of like action and stuff, and for me, it's all like character dramas basically.
Yeah, you had like
you get to the action anime like Elusive Samurai or like Kaiju number 8 at the bottom. But above that, it's like Girls Band Cry, Suma Show, things like that. Senpai wa Otoko Noko.
Well, it's like I really value like when stuff is really well executed and like something like a Don to Don.
Yeah,
I obviously recognize like how fucking great that was. As, an adaptation and how varied the action set pieces are, all that. But I do really highly value when like something like Shimatsu Train comes out too, and is like something different. It's putting a lot of thought and a lot of like detail into like very like insignificant things.
Yeah, a lot of like specific detail for seemingly you and you specifically to lose your mind over.
Oh no, it's not. That's definitely not just for like this is it's interesting to me, but it's not like it's like catered to me, right? Like if there's like a fucking Gushing Natural Girls or something.
I feel like you're like one of the maybe the only person I've seen who has thought about Shimatsu Train this much.
Yeah, probably. Maybe more people think about it when the video comes out. Someday.
But going back to Sakamoto, this is literally just like the last episode. Going back to like Sakamoto Days, I think it also another thing that came up in our argument, in our domestic squabble that we had in the Patreon channel on Discord, is
I just thought it was a disagreement.
Well, yeah, when people were like, "Oh no, mommy and daddy are fighting," I thought you were mad at me because you were gonna group watch shows later. I was like, "Mumi, where you at?" You're like, "I'm around." I was like, "Oh, is he fucking mad at me?"
No. This is what I always people fucking don't read me. So like when I said that, I was like, it was more like, sorry, I'm around, I'm good. Because like I literally just woke up, pulled my phone out, and I was like, oh shit, it's 6:20. Unlock my phone. Like
people just misread you as being an asshole.
I saw y'all in voice chat, like, yo, we're talking about like starting. I'm like, no, I'm around, I'm good. And then like I sat there for a second, I'm like, oh fuck, my head hurts so like this fucking sucks. And like I just sat there and I fell back asleep.
Mumi's angry. God damn, he like doesn't want to talk to me now. Fuck. It's like you haven't seen that new Uma Musume movie that came out last year, did you?
No, not yet.
There's a character in it called Tachyon who is the villain ? She's not. She does nothing evil throughout the entire movie, but at the same time, everything she does is framed as her being evil and like malicious or devious, but it's just like you're not doing anything wrong. You're actually being like really nice and friendly, but because it's almost like she doesn't know how to express herself properly because she's like saying this really nice thing, but she's like giving this evil smile while doing it.
I feel like this is literally just me in text.
Yes,
which is why I don't like texting. This is why we have a podcast where I talk.
This is why we have a podcast and not a blog.
the same exact shit on this podcast as I do in text. But when I say in text, people read it differently because they don't hear how I'm just like, it's not that serious. I'm just like, oh, we're just talking.
Yeah.
But like you read it in text and it's like, it's definitely a problem I had to have developed from posting on 4chan for so long.
100%. I mean, I have a similar issue. A lot of people I think like Gil has said this to me. It's like I come across as like a insane piece of shit in text, and then like, you know, Gil started talking to me in like voice and stuff. He's like, oh no, he's actually just a really funny guy. I had a friend in high school. Like, we didn't really talk much until like junior or senior year. And he was like, yeah, I thought you kind of were like gonna shoot up the school at one point, but then I realized you were just memeing. It's like, oh, thanks. I feel like maybe that was the reason I was never bullied in high school, because people thought I would just fucking go postal or something. Like, yeah, don't mess with that kid. He's already on the fucking I don't want to have to fucking barricade myself in a classroom.
I feel like people like that. I feel like that's definitely the impression. Like people just like I'm like a fucking like. I remember in high school, because I'm a quiet person generally. Yeah, as shocking as that might be, I fucking talk all the time on this fucking podcast.
Yapping.
You give me the group of like 5 people.
Right.
And I'll just usually sit there and like listen. I'm just like, okay,
yeah. Like for context, I've been in like voice calls with you before. Where like we have been in voice calls together where we were just not saying anything to one another for like an hour. We're just in a voice call alone.
We're just working.
Silently.
We're grinding.
Yeah, we're just working. Yeah.
On a Sigma grind. But yeah, I'm not super talkative generally. Like I have things I like to talk about, but and then like in high school, like people would like interpret that as me being stuck up or like an asshole. And so because like I would talk to like my friends and stuff, and then like we get in like larger groups, and then like I just kind of naturally just kind of like ease back. I'm like, okay, well y'all are doing your dynamic. I occasionally chime in.
I'm just imagining though, but the reason you're coming across as an asshole is not just because you're not saying anything. It's because you're not saying anything and you have sunglasses on and a toothpick in your mouth. So you just you look like a fucking douchebag.
My fucking boss was like, dude, you look like you're about to go sell fucking cocaine.
I'm fucking Mr. Cool Guy over here.
Because I was standing in the parking lot next to my car.
Mr. Too Good for Conversation.
Well, I was standing in the parking lot next to my car. I'm about to leave. And he's like, are you about to go sell cocaine to high schoolers or what? Because I'm selling sunglasses and shit.
Well, like in your head, you're just thinking like, oh God, please be mindful. I'm severely autistic.
Please don't bully me.
Oh God, what? Oh no, someone's going to come over here and talk to me or something. You're just like standing there looking cool.
Yeah, people are like, people will get pissed off at me for shit. I'm like, I tried to like, there for a while I would try to put like a laughing emote or something because it's like, you want to convey this is not that serious, right? Right. Like, we're just having fun. We're laughing, and they're like, you're being so smug. I'm like, that's not what I meant.
that has happened to me so much with the fucking joke heck emoji. I have in multiple servers been told that emoji makes me come across as smug. Like an ass. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. It's like I'm trying to communicate. Like I'm basically typing the exact way I'm talking right now, where it's just like, no, I'm just trying to keep the conversation light. I don't want us to be like angry.
It's not that serious. Yeah, I'm not. It's just it's a joke. It's fine.
Yeah, I think the problem is maybe we're just really autistic.
I mean, I've been tested for this. It came back negative. I am not. I am tested clinically not autistic.
Mumi. Standards for what counts as autism nowadays are very different than what they were in the 1960s when you were first tested.
Oh
yeah.
Okay.
You may want to get tested now that we're in an era where they're not gonna like throw you in a fucking like hell
mental
prison concentration camp asylum.
I did wonder why they pull out the stuff to like give me a lobotomy that when they're doing that test.
They still do lobotomies, you know that?
No.
Yeah.
I think everyone that shits on fucking Sakamoto
Days may have been lobotomy. That's exactly where I was going with that. Because the point I was trying to make before we got off topic again is that I do think people should appreciate, like, there's nothing wrong with appreciating, like, the kind of animation you get out of, like, a Jujutsu Kaisen or a Mob Psycho or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's a problem with that's the only thing you can appreciate. I don't really like people who are like, that's like the only thing they want. Like, because at the end, I think you're like limiting yourself then on like the kind of anime you can enjoy. And at the end of the day, I am an anime proselytizer, and I want more people to be watching more anime. And to, we're only going to get there if people are able to look at and appreciate things that they themselves just may not necessarily be able to appreciate just at first glance. People need to get out of their comfort zones, have new experiences, learn new things. And so when I see people being like, oh yeah, the Sakamoto Days, it should have fucking looked like Demon Slayer or whatever, it's like, have you seen anything from like before the year 2000 or 2010, 2020 even? Honestly, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, but those are old, so we progressed from that.
That's the thing. It's like, this is the same kind of attitude that puts people off. And to a certain extent, it's also just like a bullshit idea that old anime are not well animated.
Right.
Yeah, old anime look like shit compared to what's coming out. No, it's like that is as stupid as people who are like, old anime looks so much better than new anime. It's like, no, it looks different, and that's fine. We can't be making stuff that looks the exact fucking same for decades on end. But I think people, it's a matter of prejudice and a matter of bias, and I think it's important to really push back on that kind of stuff. People have stigmas towards certain things that I don't really think are justified, like limited animation. Like, I think, someone who has only seen like Jujutsu Kaisen and like Demon Slayer and shit like that, and they're like, yeah, this is the peak of action anime, and you put like Ashitano Joe in front of them, there's a decent chance they're not just going to be able to appreciate it. They're going to be like, oh, this is so trash, dude, they're like not even, they're just like PNGs, they're just panning over. And it's like, firstly, PNGs did not fucking exist in the 70s and 80s. What the fuck are you talking about?
Why are you doing this with your straw man argument?
Secondly, it's like, no, but like there's so much else to appreciate there. And, and again, it's just a matter of like, the more you watch something, the more like, the more metal you listen to, the more you're going to be able to just appreciate all kinds of metal, jazz, and any kind of genre or medium or anything like that. Any sort of artistic tradition, the more exposure you get to it, the deeper you become entrenched, I think the more things you're going to find in it to appreciate.
So to stop this from being two old men yell at clouds,
yes,
what do you propose the solution is to this?
Okay, so first things first. All right.
That's uncensored.
I want on pikes. I want nailed to the Capitol building like in ancient Rome.
I mean, you're editing this.
This is true. That's a really. Every episode now we need to start a record of like how long can we make the censor run for.
I think if we try to do that, we could be very successful in making an hour-long censor bar, and nobody would listen to it.
No, it's an experimental podcast, all right.
But you had to buy the Patreon, and you would know there was an actual real podcast where we just said explicitives the entire time.
We just made actionable threats against people. No, in terms of things that can be done, I mean, it's. To a certain extent, it's hard for any one person to really have an effect. Despite the statements I just made about very popular Anitubers with a certain podcast, I don't think it's really necessarily something they can control either. I think it's a general cultural kind of thing, and to a certain extent, it's just a matter of like, you need to perform it. You need to be the change that you want to see. and do what you can to kind of get other people on board for that. It's also just a matter of like, it's not just a matter of doing that as well. You know, as much as you can, you know, promote love and appreciation for something as well, you do also need to like push back on stuff that you take issue with as well. It can't just be all positivity. You got to go out and crack a few eggs sometimes, you know.
It's just a matter of picking your battles, though. Like with Sakamoto Days, I think it's very difficult.
Yeah, well, again, it's also like if you're only then putting out negativity into the world as well, it's like now you're just a fucking asshole. You're just telling people what not to do. You're not giving anyone any sort of framework or deeper insight to actually appreciate these things. You're just letting them know that it's like, this is like a really cringe way to look at stuff, and it's like, no, you can't just be doing that either.
I feel like it's hard. Because, like, how do you really combat, like, people posting Sakuga clips or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you basically kind of had to post, shot composition screenshots. And then really break down, like, what it is about, like, a shot composition or, like, how a scene is kind of dictated.
Yeah. And there are people who are, like, far smarter than us when it comes to that sort of thing, doing that, like Kevin, for example, from Sakuga blog, I think does a pretty good job of that with like his articles and stuff. Where it's like, oh yeah, there's like interesting like, you know, it's Sakuga. He does talk about animation, but he talks about like all of the animation. It's not just like the character animation. It's the way things are storyboarded, things are framed, composited together, things like that. You know, it's the entire process.
It's a matter of like finding people that are really into that on that level that they can do that, because like that's not really something like you could kind of train it. Like I could talk about that, but that's not something I'm like passionate about, so it's not something that stands out in the moment. Like if I go like Shimatsu Train as the example, as I've been going back and like editing the video and shit, like there's stuff I'm like, oh, that's a really cool shot, or that's like interesting that they're kind of doing this with the framing and stuff like that, but it doesn't come naturally, like second nature, like a Sakuga thing would, where it's like, holy shit, this is like immediately noticeably better animation than the stuff before.
Right.
And there might be shots like, you know, the typical kind of like panning shot where it's like zooms out on like a naturescape or something, and you're like, oh yeah, this looks really good.
Yeah. What was that tweet I posted? Someone's like, man, Land of the Lustrous is so well directed. This must be one of the most cinematographic anime I've ever seen, and it's just all wide shots, and it's like, well, yeah, they look good, but that's only one kind of shot in the show. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's not necessarily the reason why Land of the Lustrous is known for being like very like tracking shots,
just general composition that it doesn't just have like a character very far away.
Very well thought out design and character, color
planned
choices,
out scenes, choice of color.
Like, there's a lot of thought. That's the thing. I guess that's the ultimate message. Is like there's a lot of thought and a lot of effort and a lot of care put into most every frame in an anime.
Oh yeah, 100%. Even again, with the fucking tweet where someone's like, "This is why anime studios are content with just putting out slop." It's like you have no idea how much of a miracle it is that any show makes it to air.
And
if you had any idea about how fucking chaotic most anime productions are, you would be astounded that anything gets actually done.
Sakamoto Days is one. And I think that's the one people were talking about. Episode 4. I guess like the Netflix system's kind of like causing problems for the studio or whatever.
Oh yeah, well,
because you have to have all of it done.
That'd be an interesting like thing to parse through, like the actual production of Sakamoto Days, because from what I understand, TMS is like head of the production committee as well, and it's not like TMS is a small studio with like not a lot of clout. They're fucking TMS. That's like one of the biggest studios in Japan. So there's an interesting story behind the production of Sakamoto Days, 100%.
But yeah, it's not to say that you can't criticize stuff, right? You definitely can criticize Sakamoto Days. I think it's warranted in some ways. It's understandable.
It's
I would
say understandable more than warranted, to be fair.
Yeah, that's a probably a poor choice of words, but you know what I mean. Like it's understandable where you're coming from.
Right.
That being said, like the amount of like appreciation you have to have for something to be able to pick up on a lot of this stuff is going to be way above most people. It's above me, right? Like as much shit as I've seen, I'm not what I can appreciate stuff, right? If I go back and I'm like dissecting it, I can appreciate a lot. But like just watching it in the moment, I'm not sitting there. You can't really be expected to sit there and think about like, oh my god, this is amazing, unless it's just
especially we're also watching it subbed, to be fair, so it's also like our eyes are primarily fixated on the subtitles as well. So you've got to read the subtitle first, and then you can appreciate the rest of the frame for however long it's on screen.
I would say like something like Dandadan episode 7 is probably an exception. Like stuff like that.
Stuff where it's like really like it's so exaggerated that it really just becomes intelligible. That's kind of what I mean though, in terms of like making stuff that is just like incredibly accessible and obvious, where even like your most average layperson can watch that and go, yeah, no, that's really like well animated. Someone who has like no real understanding of animation or familiarity with it can still nonetheless recognize the merit of what's in front of them.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that's like bad by any means. Like that.
No.
Something that's like elevated to that.
Yeah. No. I think stuff like that definitely should exist, but you know there are levels to it. You know, if
it's more like
was like that,
I don't think it's bad that
like
people can. Like I think that's a point to what they're saying in a way where it's like this is so good that anybody can recognize as great, and there is something to that.
Yeah. Well,
that being said,
it's not that it's like, oh, it's just so high quality. It's reached the pinnacle of what's possible, and as a result, everyone could recognize it. It's more so that it's like it's done that, but in a very specific way that people are then able to recognize how great it is.
Yeah, and then you get like something like Sakamoto Days, which I described as very competent.
Yeah,
that is not by any means to belittle what Sakamoto Days is doing. Competence is not easy.
No.
What I say is it is very competent. I mean, like the director is very good and has elevated very little into something that is acceptable, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's like you could also have stuff that's like nonetheless really, really well done, but it's also understated, and it's not necessarily something that's immediately going to catch your eye, immediately draw your attention to it as well. Like you think about like soundtracks are a lot like that. You know, this idea that like, you know, background music is background music. It's not supposed to draw your attention to it, but at the same time, a really good OST, maybe it's being done in a way where it's not in the background anymore. Maybe it's in the foreground. Maybe it is like something you're actively meant to be like soaking in and thinking about while watching the show itself.
And that's a problem with a lot of stuff is when something is doing its job, you're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Well, and that doesn't make it average. That means it's good. It's you're not thinking about it.
It's like a magician trick, you know? It's if you knew how the trick was performed, then it wouldn't really be interesting anymore. And to a certain extent, being a good magician involves understanding ways to distract the audience in order to pull off the trick and do it in a way that's interesting and clever, and that's how you fool Penn and Teller.
How do we get to Penn and Teller?
What?
Where are we?